welcome back.
Hi.
So today we've got some questions that we're going to be answering. So the first one is about Menstruation Nation, which is a project that we did in class.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, if I would lead the community development, community-based rehab project that we created, what might I change or do differently and why?
Okay.
So the first thing is that I think prior to the pitch, I would have wanted one of us to have gone over with Days for Girls to Tanzania to get a little bit of felt need, to understand the culture a little bit more. And then I think that would have improved the strength of our pitch because we could have said that we've already been over to Tanzania, so we know this is what they need. Or we could have done a Perth-based pilot program so that it would require less funding. We could have done that already and had that be a successful program and then have taken that to the pitch and been like, we've already run a successful program. It's shown this stats. It's done this. And then being able to take that over. Obviously changing it for cultural differences. But having that. The other thing I think we need to change, or something we could have added, our whole team is girls, which is great. But culturally, men are more respected in Tanzania. And I think when we're trying to give education to the parents, like the dads and some of the older generation men and even the boys in school, it's more likely they're going to respect men telling them this information. And even when we're dealing with higher up people's policy, it's more likely we're going to need some men on our side to be able to deliver some information. And then I had a few concerns with our needs assessment. The first thing is just that our the topic we're doing, menstruation, is it's not dealt well in Tanzania. There's a negative stigma around it. The original data that we gathered was through Days for Girls, and we're assuming that they're going to want education about menstruation, but right now they have the kits that Days for Girls are giving them, and they might feel like that's enough, especially considering the stigma and the fear surrounding menstruation. It's doubtful that people are going to want, openly accept education around menstruation. So that could be a barrier that we'll experience. Also, recruiting champions. We've said the way that we've approached that, it sounds like it's going to be really easy. But if there's lots of teachers over there that are quite traditional, we already found research that said that health is meant to be in the curriculum, and in lots of schools it's not. Specifically menstruation, it's not taught. And we're assuming that is because of a lack of confidence, and there was some research that said that, but it could be because they don't want to teach it as well. So that might be difficult to find champions. And then there could be issues with translations because we will be writing the program originally in English for them to teach. Of course, it'll be translated into Swahili, but we don't know how well that translation is going to work and if there's differences in language, and you don't want there to be messages that aren't getting across the way that we'd intended them to get across. I also think that as a group, we've grown up in Western society, most of us, and we don't have enough cultural awareness around what would be happening in Tanzania. I think that if we got the chance to work with some Western Tanzanians while we're in Perth, or if we could go on a cultural exploration trip or do some more cultural diversity courses or PD days. Or even, I know that Tanzania often hosts prac students, nursing prac students. If there was an opportunity for OTs to go over for that sort of trip, I think that would be really helpful, would allow us to create some connections and would allow us to increase our cultural knowledge. And then the last thing that I thought would be a big risk is that in Tanzania, they practice female genital mutilation, which increases the health risk, especially for the girls who are experiencing menstruation around that time. And it demonstrates how deeply rooted negative stigmas are and these beliefs are in their society for them to be treating women's bodies like this. And it's mothers and grandmothers that are often performing these surgeries. So it's not even that it's a gender thing, that it's men doing this to women. It's within the culture, women think this is the right thing to do. And this is often due to fear around what menstruation is and what it means, which can stem from a lack of education, which is what we're assuming and what we're hoping to help. But it just shows that it's a flow through generations and how strong the fear is within this culture. I could never imagine what it would be like to experience FGM, and that's not something I'm going to assume. And I think that's something that we have to be aware of. We don't want to offend anyone, and going in trying to educate people around this, the self-care in that sort of respect will be quite different. And then the second question that we're answering today is about strengths and skills to develop if I were to actually go over and lead and manage the Menstruation Nation project that we did. So my strengths are my interpersonal skills. I think I work well with others. I'm good at getting a group to work well together towards like a common goal. We also did that emotional intelligence scale in class, and I ranked fairly highly in like most of the little things, boxes, and even the ones that I ranked slightly lower in, I felt quite confident. Like they were areas that I've already identified in the past as being things that I need to work on. Like there were things I was already aware of as slight weaknesses. And then also in the peer review, I got lots of like positive feedback about having good communication skills and being motivated to help others, and that I was quite approachable. So like that sort of stuff that I think would be quite helpful going into this project.
Yeah, definitely.
And then areas for improvement. I'm a very nervous public speaker.
Yeah.
And I know that for us to be able to do the pitch, which we need to do to get funding, I would want to be able to do it.
Yep.
But at the moment, I would not feel confident enough in myself to be able to speak in front of that many people and deliver the content to like the level that I think it deserves to be delivered.
Yeah.
I also struggle to sit down and focus for long periods of time, which is fine when I'm just working on my own because I can get up and like work around that. But as a group, if we were working on like project things we had a set 2 hours or a set 3 hours, like that's something that I struggled to do, was sit and stay focused for the whole time. So that's something that I need to work on. And then reflecting in group situations, there were a few times when I felt like my perspective of cultural issues versus some of the other group members' perspectives were quite different. Some people seemed to think that it would happen quite easily, just that we'd come in and it would happen and then we'd leave, but
it would be sustainable.
Yeah, it would be sustainable. And I guess maybe I was being quite negative, but I don't think it's going to be as simple as just coming in and telling people that they need to learn these things, and people are going to be open to learning them. But I also need to be respectful that like that's my perspective of it, and it's not necessarily reflective of the reality of the situation. So just being aware of that.
Yeah.
And then I also absorb people's like moods and energies quite a lot. So if we were working with like the 10 of us, or even just like in a bigger scale if we were doing a project.
Yeah.
And like there were lots of tension and lots of stress, I sometimes find it difficult to not take all of that on board. But like I'm quite aware of that, and so I do my best to try and like step away from that and be able to keep a logical mind and stay level-headed.
Yeah.
And even in that respect, it can, like, I think it's a weakness that I struggle to balance my emotions, but I think it can be a strength that I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
And then in times like that, sometimes I'm able to try and calm everyone down around me, so that then it does help me, but it also ends up helping the group as well.
Yeah.
And then recently I went through surgery and a hormone implant, and that was halfway through us creating the project. So I definitely felt like, I mean, my specialist had told me, she was like, oh, you can't make any serious decisions for 2 months due to hormone fluctuations and emotional imbalance. And I was like, oh, okay.
Great.
And so like that plus the medication and the healing time, I definitely felt like it impacted my ability to be present with the group.
Yeah.
It impacted my ability to focus, my ability to regulate my emotions, and even just like my short-term memory and things like that. And that all I feel contributed to my lack of confidence to do the pitch as well.
Yeah.
Hormone balance is something that I've always had to like sort of battle and work on, and emotional regulation is something that I've always like tried to work on.
Yeah.
And I've found that as long as I have like a personal routine and like self-care routines and stuff, I'm generally able to stay on track with that, because like if my head's not in the right place, I find it difficult to work with other people.
Yeah.
So that's something that I have to be aware of. I also recognise that the surgery was like just happened to be in the middle of making this project. Yeah. So like long term, it's more emotional regulation things, and I started using some strategies such as mindfulness, grounding techniques, and then just like trying to further my readings in those sort of areas. And then I need to improve my own cultural awareness. I've never been to Tanzania. I have limited knowledge, but I feel like my awareness of my limited knowledge can be a strength, because I'm open to questions and I'm open to learning new things.
Yep.
And then strategies to improve my ability is reflective journaling, so after sessions going away and processing things, and then also just open and honest feedback from the group so they have more insight into areas of growth.
Yep.
So yeah, thank you for listening.
Cool.